How do you make a new slasher movie in 2025 without feeling stale? This was already a dilemma 30 years ago, until Scream found a way by going meta and adding a more comedic slant. 5 Screams later, what do you do now? Well, why not throw another genre on the pile and see what happens? Heart Eyes is a romantic comedy slasher. I hesitate to use the word horror because, as we'll see, it hardly attempts to elicit fear. But who says a slasher needs to be scary? Heart Eyes seems to think not. But is that true, or is Heart Eyes all lies? It opens on a random couple celebrating Valentine's Day at a winery. Their names don't matter because this is a classic slasher cold open. They're only here to die. It's a way to preview the danger ahead and set the tone. The couple is presented as conceited and annoying, to make sure you won't feel bad when they die. You might even be rooting for it, like that babysitter in Jurassic World who cared more about her own wedding than those 2 brat kids. He proposes with an engagement ring in a strawberry, which she spits out. "I told you not to put it in my food." He proceeds with the proposal using words probably pre-approved by her, only to find out the photographer didn't get the shot. The guy curses him out to make sure we hate both characters equally, then he half-heartedly repeats the proposal, and the killing begins. The photographer gets a knife through the lens and into his eye. After his botched proposal, the would-be groom takes an arrow through the forehead. She has a bit of a chase while yelling at the Heart Eyes killer, "I've been planning this day my whole life and you fucking killed him." She isn't grieving the dead, she's grieving the day. And that's all part of painting her in a bad light, so you don't care too much when she dies, and it sets that more comedic tone. In terms of horror, it's less thrills and more, I wonder what creative ways they'll find to kill people. After a few stabbings as an appetizer, including a guard who happens upon the killer, we get to the grand finale of this cold open. She gets popped like a big grape in a wine press. That might sound gory, but it's that cartoonish sort of gore, where it's more blood than guts. 1 second there's a person, and the next there's just blood splatter. Finally, we get our first glimpse at the Heart Eyes killer, and he does have a creepy look, where the mask has an almost fleshy texture. The hearts as eye holes could be cheesy, but they work. My only disappointment is that while he does sometimes use arrows, I thought they'd lean even more into the anti-Cupid angle. For holiday slashers in general, especially when they lean more comedic, I always appreciate when they embrace the holiday more fully. After the title card, a news sequence gets us up to speed. This Heart Eyes killer, or HEK, I assume a reference to the real-life killer BTK, has been killing couples on Valentine's Day in random cities for the last couple of years. Now, he's come to Seattle. Do you know how BTK was caught, by the way? It's an awesome story. He wrote a letter to the police asking, "Hey, if I sent you some more writings of mine on a floppy disk, you couldn't trace that back to me, right?" The police answered him in a newspaper saying, "No, you'll be totally safe." So he sends a floppy disk, and of course they trace it back to him, because of course they can do that. I just love that story and look for any reason to bring it up. Now it's time to meet our protagonist, Allie McCabe, played by Olivia Holt, who I would know from Cloak and Dagger if I bothered to include that show in my MCU timeline, but hey, I've got the official timeline book right here, and I'm looking at the timeline playlist on Disney Plus, and I don't see any Cloak or Dagger. If Disney themselves don't include it, why should I? We meet Allie looking sadly at her ex-boyfriend on social media, already posing with a new girl. As though things aren't bad enough already, she's also in trouble at work because the recent marketing campaign she designed for the jewelry company is a flop. Then, the meet cute, a phrase I cannot escape. I had to use it 4 times in my companion video, and now this. At least both movies are subversive in their romance. The irony helps it go down easier. The barista calls out Allie's extremely specific coffee order. Large ice-blended Americano with oat milk, 2 honey, and 1 sugar. And wouldn't you know it, when she grabs the cup, her hand meets another's because this guy ordered the same thing. A character we'll soon learn is named Jay, played by Mason Gooding, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son, making a name for himself in meta horror comedies, with Scream 5, 6, Y2K, and now this. The two get all giggly over their matching orders, and the movie has some fun playing like a romantic comedy spoof, because the barista rolls his eyes. It's actually a pretty common order. Now can you move? I have other customers. The two accidentally bump their heads into each other twice, as though the movie is punishing the two characters for their overly cheesy meet cute, something I appreciated. Also, Allie reveals she carries around a metal straw. If I know movies, she will definitely be stabbing it into a bad guy's throat later. After throwing some napkins at Jay for his now bloody nose, Allie runs to work, where we find out why she's in such hot water. Her ad campaign highlights tragic love stories like Romeo and Juliet or Titanic, under the branding "Till Death Do Us Part." Not a great look with a killer around who targets couples. I found this funnier in concept than execution. Her ad is absurd, with people convulsing to death in ways that poke fun at pretentious jewelry ads. But this movie exists in a comedy world, where everyone is acting in an exaggerated manner. Like the almost bride, more upset about her ruined day than her lost fiancé. It's like a comedic duo with two clowns and no straight man to contrast the insanity. So instead of laughing at the campaign as something absurd, it honestly just fits right in with everything else. The movie also goes for a lot of the easy jokes, where you just reference something of today and hope people laugh because they recognize it. They read off what people are saying about the ad campaign on social media. Things like, "I hope whoever designed this ad gets canceled. I hope someone doxes you. As someone who may die someday, I find this commercial to be tone deaf and borderline ableist. Canceled. Doxing. I've heard people say those things, and now they're saying them in the movie." Anyway, somebody has to clean up Allie's mess, and they're calling in the big guns. A freelancer with an incredible reputation in the marketing business, Jay Simmons. Yes, the very same guy she met at the coffee shop this morning. Things are about to get awkward. Meanwhile, the investigation at the winery is led by Detective Zeke Hobbs and Jeanette Shaw. I'm gonna wait for you to stop laughing because I know that is a banger. What? You don't get the joke? Let me break it down for you. Their names are Hobbs and Shaw, like the movie Hobbs and Shaw. More humor of the "they're saying things I've heard before" variety. At the crime scene, they find evidence, a ring with the inscription JS. JS. Jay Simmons? Could he be a suspect? As the workday nears its end, Jay tells Allie he's booked them a table at a fancy restaurant to talk ideas for fixing the campaign. It's Valentine's Day, so kinda weird, but she has no plans, so romance is afoot. Before dinner, Allie grabs a drink with her friend Monica, who just had her debt paid off by her sugar daddy. No, that term is problematic. Her sponsor. When this movie isn't in slasher mode, it's mostly a not great romantic comedy. The chemistry between Gooding and Holt is solid, and you do want to see them get together, but usually when the movie is trying to be funny, it's the same joke over and over, just saying things that are of today and kind of winking while they say it. Monica accuses Allie of stalking her ex.
I'm not stalking him. The algorithm is stalking me.
It's the algorithm.
And Hard Eyes has done it again, another modern day reference. They mentioned social media algorithms. But you know what Hard Eyes hasn't done again? Killed anyone. I thought this was a slasher movie. We see a news report that HEK has killed 2 more at a spa. That should have been its own scene, instead of just something mentioned in the background on TV. We need more kills because right now, I feel like I got tricked into reviewing a romantic comedy. On cue, they start a shopping montage to get Allie ready for her totally not a date work dinner with Jay. And at the dinner, there is a subtle bit of humor that shows the value in a genre mashup. Now that we're in romantic comedy mode, the horror elements stand out more, and the contrast can be funny. every patron is scanned with a metal detector and they find Allie's metal straw. That's because they're on high alert for HEK, considering all the Valentine dates that'll be coming in. Suddenly, the idea of a killer who targets happy couples floating in the background of a romantic comedy, it's not ha-ha funny. It's not two people named Hobbs and Shaw funny, but it is humorous. At the not date, Allie is standoffish, unwilling to give in to Jay's charms. To be fair, she is trying to salvage what's left of her career, so that kind of takes priority. Not to mention, she doesn't even believe in love. Romance is a lie, and now she works in a job that forces her to propagate a fantasy to sell blood diamonds. She says all this out loud. It's not a subtle movie, except for the spa murders, where subtlety is the last thing that's called for. She storms out, and Jay goes after her. Outside, she spots her ex with his new girlfriend, so she does the only sensible thing and kisses Jay to play the happy couple. They share an Uber to their separate abodes until Allie realizes she's locked herself out. Jay to the rescue. He punches open the window and she brings him upstairs to treat his now bleeding hand. The place is a mess, and she's even left a sex toy out in the open. So awkward. At this point, I'll stop listing out the jokes unless one really stands out. Otherwise, it's safe to assume that it's all either references or sitcom level antics. The humor is at its best when it takes advantage of that unique blend, romantic, comedy, and slasher. Like what happens next. She finds the Hard Eyes killer in her closet. As the killer chases her and Jay outside, she yells at him, "You've got the wrong people. We're not a couple. We barely know each other." That's a funny source of tension. You want the main characters to fall in love, but the closer they get, the more of a target they become. And we finally get another on-screen kill. Hard Eyes shoots their Uber driver in the head to stop them from escaping. They keep running, but it's like the killer is in two places at once, always one step ahead. Jay gets knocked out, and Allie runs, taking refuge on a merry-go-round at the park. HEK activates the ride, which makes for a fun backdrop to their struggle, as the killer beheads plastic horses while Allie dodges his blade. And that's when the cops arrive. They help Allie and arrest Jay, identifying him as the Hard Eyes killer. He's also upset with Allie that she abandoned him after the killer knocked him out. She defends herself.
You're tall and ripped and perfectly capable of defending yourself.
I really appreciate the compliments, especially coming from you. These muscles were not made for violence, they're for cuddling.
At the station, Hobbs and Shaw share their evidence. That ring at the previous crime scene inscribed JS. Like, yes, Jay Simmons. While he's interrogated, Allie is stuck at the front desk demanding answers, and the lady won't help her. A lady in the middle of a crossword puzzle looking for an answer to the clue, a 5-letter word for dog ending in H, and Allie happily offers the answer as a thinly veiled insult.
Bitch, excuse me.
Female dog.
This is where I have to assess my biases, because I found that joke to be incredibly unfunny and obvious. But is that just because I have a problem with romantic comedies? Because Hot Fuzz did a very similar joke years ago, and I thought it was funny then. So was it funnier in Hot Fuzz, or am I being unfair?
I'm Joyce Cooper. I trust you had a pleasant trip. Fascist.
I beg your pardon?
System of government characterized by extreme dictatorship. 7 across.
Oh, I see. It's fascism.
Fascism. Wonderful. Now we've put you in the castle suite. Bernard will escort you up there.
Well, actually, I could probably make my own way up. Hag.
I beg your pardon?
Evil old woman considered frightful or ugly. 12 down.
Oh!
No, it was definitely funnier. In Hot Fuzz, the crossword mishap where she calls him fascist and he calls her hag were two of a series of misunderstandings, starting with him asking to check in at the hotel before she tells him, "You've always been here," in a creepy, Shining sort of way, only to reveal she simply mistook him for her husband.
I was hoping to check in.
Check in? But you've always been here.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were my husband. You must be sad.
The repetition of the misunderstandings that almost seem intentional by the characters makes it funnier. Also, the fact that there's genuine tension and mystery in the movie, which the scene plays with. For a moment, you wonder if there is something more sinister in her claim that he's always been here. The sudden yank back to, no, that was just a genuine mistake or her messing around. There's also the fact that it's an homage to The Shining without being an overt and obvious reference. And the crossword jokes were also more subtle. The characters say the insults in a sudden and jarring way, then reveal they were answers to the crossword, as opposed to Hard Eye's approach. Lady is being mean and then sets up the punchline by reading the clue out loud. It feels too coincidental that she'd be looking at that clue at that very moment. It's also not believable that word would even be in the crossword, and it's even less believable she'd need help figuring out the answer. The joke here is less believable, more obvious, and has no humorous contrast with the movie's tone because it's not trying to be scary or tense while being funny, it's only trying to be funny. After that, the lady finally agrees to head back to get Allie an update. And then, Allie bumps into the station's IT guy who thinks he recognizes her. Maybe from Bumble? No, she's not on the app, so it can't be that. Before leaving, he shoots his shot and asks her out. But it's not a good time. She almost got murdered tonight. So he tells her to stay safe and leaves. And he is definitely the killer, but he has a knack for teleportation, so you have to assume there are multiple killers wearing that mask, working together, Scream style, one of whom happens to be here right now. The power goes out, and in the darkness, he stabs the mean cop lady to death, then reveals those hearts on the mask light up as night vision goggles, which is pretty cool. It's hard to be original in a slasher movie these days, but one place you can always be creative is in the villain. Their mask, motive, and mannerisms. This movie definitely has some fun with the villain's look. As for the motive, we'll get to that soon. Next to die is Hobbs. The killer hits him with a classic machete to the groin before going in for a kill shot. Allie fumbles in the dark and finds Jay still in the interrogation room chained up. They communicate through the speaker and he begs her to find the key, but suddenly she stops responding. The door opens and in walks the Hard Eyes killer, wielding a machete Jason Voorhees style. Despite the chain limiting his movement, Jay dodges the killer's attacks until a series of gunshots scare the killer off. Allie has returned. All her shots miss, she doesn't even graze him, but she does shatter the one-way mirror between her and Jay. She unlocks his chains and they run outside. He follows them all the way to the drive-in theater, where Allie and Jay realize their grave mistake. They just led a couples-killing maniac to an all-you-can-kill buffet. It is the usual brand of self-aware quip we've come to expect from every film of the 2020s, but this particular quip is at least unique to this premise and its odd romantic slasher mix. The more the movie leans into what makes it special, the more I appreciate it. And what follows is probably my favorite scene, at least visually, because watching the silent killer walk into the crowd of cars and people is creepy, especially when he casually murders someone on his stroll. All of this reminded me of a scene from the Halloween franchise, but when I tried to find that scene, I couldn't. It turns out I was thinking of the unproduced Halloween 4, the one written by Dennis Etchison that never got made, the one that would have been directed by John Carpenter and featured a climax taking place at a drive-in. And that isn't me flexing Halloween knowledge, that's me trying to extract some value from all the research I did, which didn't end up making it into my Halloween video. Allie and Jay find refuge in a van where, get this, there's a couple in the back mid-coitus, which I know a lot of people found hilarious. Maybe I'm too jaded, but it just feels like the easy joke. They do their best to ignore the sounds of lovemaking while they open up to each other. Allie admits why she's so afraid of love. Her parents had a storybook romance that ended with her father dead, and her mom never fully recovered from the grief. Jay had the opposite experience. His parents hated each other. They fought all the time, and now he's overcorrected, becoming a hapless romantic who puts every girl on a pedestal, only to have his heart broken over and over because they can't take his suffocating attempt to prove mom and dad wrong. Finally, Allie admits, tonight probably should have been the worst night of her life, but it wasn't. There's an interesting idea here of comparing two people's differing approaches to romance based on what they experienced as children. It's slightly offset by the unsubtle level of self-reflection, where both characters so cleanly identify the root cause and outcomes of their inner psyche, More realistically, people struggle to be that self-aware. It's messy, and the interesting part is seeing what drives them to finally see where they're going wrong, as opposed to Jay and Allie, who have already done that introspection. It just takes time for them to admit it to each other. It's around then the couple in the back gets a little too loud. HEK opens the trunk and shoves a tire iron into the guy's mouth so it's stuck in his skull pointing up, so that when the killer shoves her head down, the same iron goes through her mouth and right out the back of her head. Ouch. One of the movie's more creative kills, I have to admit. That's when people start to notice the carnage and all hell breaks loose at the drive-in. Hard Eyes machetes a few people in the crowd as it scrambles. People run off, including Jay and Allie, until she hesitates. They're the ones who brought the killer here. They can't just leave him to slaughter these innocent people. So she takes Jay's hand and coaxes him to join her in facing off against this villain. They find him terrorizing a couple in a car, so they get his attention. As the killer approaches, they arm themselves with the tire iron from dead guy's mouth. Jay has a brief tire iron versus machete sword fight and ends up nearly unconscious on the ground. HEK goes in for the kill until Allie hits him over the head with something heavy. He drops the machete, Jay promptly picks it up, stabs it through him, and now the killer has been vanquished. Except when Jay stabbed him, some blood got in Allie's mouth, so she vomits all over the fresh corpse. They remove his mask to reveal...
Who the fuck is that?
I have no idea.
A rando they've never met before. After that, a classic sitting on the back of an ambulance with those blankets scene. Jay tries to salvage the evening. Why don't you come back to my hotel? Order some room service. We can hammer out that marketing campaign. She gently turns him down. She just isn't up for it right now. Officer Shaw arrives then and offers Jay a ride home. He takes off, but first leaves Allie with his digits. After that, Allie is down in the dumps. She finally met a guy she likes and let him slip through her fingers. Now he's about to fly off for his friend's wedding. Allie's friend Monica tells her what to do. You have to go after him. Quote, Allie, listen to me. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to have someone love you for the beautiful neurotic mess that you are. I mean, you can be so clueless sometimes. It's one of the 10 things I hate about you. Honestly, you can't let Jay go off to his best friend's wedding and hook up with a bunch of bridesmaids and move to Notting Hill. No, this is love, mama. Some kind of wonderful, crazy, stupid love, actually. Go get him. Did you get the references? Do you get it? Do you get the joke?
When I grow up, I want to be just like you, and I think I'm on the right track. Get it? Track, because horses run on tracks, and you are a horse. Do you get it? Do you get my joke about the track? Okay, there's a whole page of this.
Allie rushes to the airport and hugs the wrong guy because he looks like Jay from behind, but he isn't Jay. Get it? She just hugged some random guy, and he's just like, who are you? Do you get the joke?
You gotta stop asking people if they get things.
But then how do I know if they got it?
They'll laugh.
Allie gets a call. A deep, mysterious voice. The killer, somehow still alive, and they have Jay as a hostage. St. Valentine's Chapel. Come alone, or he dies. Of course, she comes alone, and at the chapel finds a beat-up Jay tied up on the altar with a killer behind him. That killer takes off the mask, and this time, it is a face that she's seen. The guy from the police station. The one who shot his shot with Allie right after she survived a murder attempt. She doesn't recognize him at first, which makes for a funny, awkward moment. He wants it to be a big reveal, and she's just like, who?
Star-Lord. Who? Star-Lord, man.
Sick reference, though, bro. Oh, thanks, bud. Dude, your references are out of control. Everyone knows that.
So who is the guy they killed? That was Eli. You guys were a couple? No, thruple. And in walks Officer Shaw, the third member of this psycho love triad. Shaw met David, the IT guy, in a chat room 10 years ago, and it turned out they shared a fetish for killing couples, and they got married at this very chapel. As for Eli, he was unimportant to them, just a fanboy obsessed with HEK. In their villain monologue, they outline the details, in each kill, who was wearing the mask, when. Shaw was in the closet the first time Allie saw the killer, and outside it was David who killed their driver. He was also the killer at the winery. That's where he dropped his ring, engraved with his wife's initials, Janine Shaw, which just so happens to match Jay's initials, making him the perfect patsy. And why did they target Allie and Jay? They aren't even a couple. Well, at the restaurant, they were going to target that other couple, Allie's ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend, but they saw Allie and Jay kiss. Their chemistry was undeniable. That's when they became targets. Allie takes it all in and replies, "I didn't know murder was a love language." Love language? Thruple? Words? Then they tell Allie there's a gun on the ground with a single bullet. They give her a choice. Shoot Jay or prove that love truly conquers all by shooting yourself. Meanwhile, they hold a couple of knives vaguely in Jay's vicinity. Why they think she would do anything other than what she does next, I don't know. Obviously, she shoots at them, specifically Janine, albeit through Jay's shoulder, but this whole setup was a level of incompetence that makes it impossible to believe these killers could have possibly lasted this long. It's too ridiculous for a Scream-type movie where humor is intertwined with genuine horror, and fair enough if that isn't what it's going for. Sometimes it feels like it is, but sometimes it feels more like it's aiming to be the next scary movie, where nothing is taken seriously at all. In that case, it isn't funny enough, and would have been better off leaning into actual thrills. Some of it is genuinely funny, like the couple of examples I've given already, and even here, in a murder mystery, you expect an interesting, surprising reveal, not only in terms of who's behind the mask, but also the motive. And it subverts expectations when that motive turns out to be, it's a fetish. Now it's a battle. Jay takes David's retractable arrow and releases it at the side of his head. And this part is really cool because it sticks through his temple, but it's at an angle, so it looks like someone thread a big needle through David's face. It goes through the flesh, over his eyes, then behind his nose and out his cheek. He stumbles around into some candles and screams as the melting wax burns him. Now it's Allie versus Shaw. Or should I say, Shaw versus straw. This is when Allie plunges that metal straw into her throat, then finishes the job by shoving Shaw into the sword held by the statue of Saint Valentine. There, Shaw lives the final seconds of her life finding out what it feels like to have your head slowly separated from your body by gravity. It only lasts a few seconds, but the muscles and everything else between here and here slowly getting pulled apart. It's probably the goriest part of the movie. It makes it all worthwhile. Allie runs over to Jay, and this is a slasher, so it can't be over without one final scare. A half-burned David starts crawling toward them until Jay grabs the crossbow and puts a definitive end to the killer's life. 1 year later, the company celebrates a successful marketing campaign courtesy of Jay and Allie, and it'll be the last one Allie participates in because she's decided to quit and return to med school. She originally left because she didn't do well with blood, but I guess exposure therapy is a hell of a thing. After the company celebration, they head back to the drive-in for a date, a symbolic place where Jay first realized he was in love with Allie. He offers her a key, asks if she'll move in with him. She makes a counteroffer, a counter-proposal, offering instead a ring, and he says yes. Finally, a happy ending. There is a post-credits scene where, following the proposal, Allie gets a call. The voice on the other end is familiar. She's being watched by her friend Monica, who's there to take a photo of the moment. She put on the killer voice as a prank and nothing more. So the happy ending holds, and where you expect setup for a sequel, instead you get one last moment of humor, showing that romantic comedy triumphs over horror every time. If you're into that sort of thing, which I'm not. Don't get me wrong, I can enjoy a romantic comedy here and there, but I don't think this was a particularly funny one. And that gets back to the original question. Does a slasher have to be scary to be good? Of course not. Scares are only one way to engage and entertain. Romance and comedy are another. Though if you're going to mash genres, you hope to see the filmmakers take advantage of the mashup to unlock something unique. Hard Eyes sometimes does that, when it adds humor by subverting romance with horror or vice versa. It also intertwines romance with horror by saying the more real the sparks between Jay and Allie, the more they put a target on their backs. That's pretty interesting, though it could have been more if the movie struck more of a balance between humor and genuine thrills. I can imagine a great transition from will they, won't they romantic tension to will they, won't they live tension, the sort you see in genuine slashers. But with this movie's reliance on humor, there isn't much tension on either end. And that gets to the bottom line. The success of this movie depends on how much it makes you laugh. For me, it was more miss than hit. There's enough there, I wouldn't hate it as a date movie. Enough romance for her, and just enough blood, guts, and a few laughs to keep me entertained. Month of Terror continues tomorrow with The Conjuring: Last Rites.